Welcome, everybody, to the You Are Worthy Network. I'm your host, Steve Wormer. Happy Monday, and it is now officially summer. What is today, the 22nd? I guess yesterday was officially summer, but I am excited to be with each of you. I'm excited to bring to you an amazing guest, and I think you're really going to love her heart and her love for what she's doing for God and for his people. And I'm going to read you her bio here in just a second. But before I do, I want to say thank you for being with us today. Thank you if you're new for maybe chiming in to your first interview, maybe just, your second or third, I don't know. But whether you've watched one, watched them all, or somewhere in between, it takes all of us to make the network work in the community. And I say thank you. I'm not going to go into today so much what the network is. I do tend to do that. We'll just say the short version is the You Are Worthy Network is a rebuttal to my own stinking mindset. And I'll leave it there for now. But I am excited to tell you that this episode will be on Spotify later today. And we just launched on Spotify. I guess it was Thursday or Friday, if even that, last week. And there are right now 3 episodes on Spotify. And my interview with Elaine will be the fourth. So we're super, super excited about that. It's been a podcast all along, but now that it's out there on a traditional platform, I guess now we're official, right? But we're just going to keep doing what we do. We're going to keep doing what God's called us to do, and whatever He wants to do with it, like in everything else, the results are always up to Him. But I just wanted you guys to know I'm grateful for each one of you. And if no one has told you today, it's my honor to tell you your story is not over yet. Whether you're in the most incredible mountaintop experience, and if you are, please share it with the rest of us. We need some of that energy. Or whether you're in the valley or, yeah, it's another Monday. I want to encourage you that your story's not over yet. Some of the best chapters in your book of life are still to be written, still to be unveiled to you, and I can't wait to see what the Lord does with the rest of your book. Okay, now you're like, Steve, be quiet. Introduce Elaine. I get it. Elaine Lankford is a passionate advocate for Christian female entrepreneurs dedicated to helping them launch and grow successful businesses, ministries, and nonprofits. As the founder of She Steps Forward Coaching and She Steps Forward International, she empowers women to step confidently into their God sized dreams. Through She Steps Forward Coaching, Elaine offers targeted strategic planning and individualized support to aspiring female entrepreneurs. As a certified John Maxwell team member, she brings expertise in speaking, writing, leadership development, and entrepreneur coaching to her faith based approach. Expanding her vision globally, Elaine established She Steps Forward International, SSFI, a nonprofit organization that equips both American and African women to lead impactful ventures. SSFI's flagship event, the She Steps Forward International Entrepreneurial Intensive, unites like minded female entrepreneurs annually, each March in the United States and July in Africa, fostering a global community of inspiration and shared wisdom. Wow, there's a lot to discuss. Elaine, welcome to the Your Worthy Network.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here with you, Steve.
You're doing amazing things. We were just talking just a little bit before we went live about your event that's starting to gain a lot of traction again this year, or I guess I should say, well, I don't know what month. What month is it in for Kenya?
July, next month.
It is next month. Okay, it is imminent, but we'll get back to that here shortly. Elaine, why don't you tell folks what part of the world you're coming to us? Where do you call home?
Absolutely. So I am a native Virginian. Also a native Suffolkian, which is Suffolk, Virginia, and people know that as the peanut capital of the world because we hosted Planters Peanuts.
I did not know that. The
Yep, yep. My
peanut.
dad worked for that. My dad worked for Planters Peanuts for 34 years, so we were all about the nuts.
So the actual plant, the
Mm.
planter's plant, is in Suffolk.
Yeah, it's a really I'll share that story super quick. Amelia Obisi. Mr. Obisi came over, migrated from Italy many years ago. He came over and established Planters Peanuts. And out of his fortune from Planters Peanuts, he eventually went on to establish Louise Obisi Memorial Hospital and he put a foundation behind it in memory of his wife, Louise. And so they have great, rich history here in Suffolk, and we all know them very, very well.
Things you did not know before going live. Amazing. See, you can come on the You Are Worthy Network and learn about facts like that you never could get anywhere else. Amazing. So you've lived in Virginia most of your life, right?
I was born and raised here.
Okay. And what do you like to do for fun in Virginia and when you travel?
We're pretty homebound kind of people. We just like to kick back. We live here in the country portion of Suffolk. And but Virginia is rich in history. There's Colonial Williamsburg, there's Civil War areas that you can visit, and so we're a rich state with our history of our country. And as far as traveling, we actually kind of beach bum down to the North Carolina beaches when we're ready, and we just love to hang out at Atlantic Beach on the offshore season.
Nice, nice. Now, when you say we, tell us who you do life with.
Absolutely. So I've been married to my husband, Daryl, for over 33 years. We have one son, Nicholas, who's 28. And then we have our what we call our bonus kid, which was a cousin of mine that we ended up taking in when she was 12. And Julie is 40 and has an 18-year-old son of her own now.
What a blessing. What a tremendous blessing. Yeah, you talk about the history of Virginia. I won't go there too deep, but like I remember as a kid growing up in Virginia, my first few years of life, going to Virginia Beach for vacation. I remember going to the James River like on a 2 to 3 time a month well, I wasn't old enough to do it, but my family would float down the river and just hang out and picnic and stuff like that. So and yeah, Williamsburg was not far away from Richmond where I grew up. Lots of history for sure. Um, Elaine,
I was
let's
going to just
let's
say, I'm sorry, I was just going to say
no,
Jamestown was like a mandatory school field trip for us. So all the schools
yeah,
always took kids up to Jamestown. It's really cool.
yeah, makes total sense. Let's travel back in time a little bit. Let's go back to your senior year in high school. And what I like doing this, my son just graduated high school about a month ago, and he's still 17. He was 17 when he graduated, won't be 18 for another 3 months. But I think it's fascinating to get into the mindset of 17 and 18-year olds, what they're thinking, what they're going to do. He just literally bought his first truck Saturday, and he knew it was going to have some issues. And just literally before I went live with you, he just had it towed to our mechanic, to give it a once over and hopefully to get it started and all that kind of stuff. But think back to when you were in high school. Let's say there's a week to go before graduation. You've got the cap and the gown. Maybe you've got the class ring. You've got the big date circled on the calendar. You're marking down the dates. What are you thinking? Like, are you thinking, wow, this is exciting. I've already got a job lined up for the summer. I already know what I'm going to do in the fall. I can't wait to get out of here. Let's go.
So,
Or,
yep, yep, go
well,
ahead.
on the other end of the spectrum, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's time to get a job. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in the fall. I'm going to miss this place. And there's no right or wrong answer. You could be somewhere in between, but where were you?
So funny. This ties into the history of Suffolk and Mr. Obese. So I was a little bit more of a driven kid. And as a faith-based person, I can tell you that God already downloaded to me in sixth grade that I was supposed to be a nurse. And so from sixth grade on, my whole trajectory in school was to get the education behind me that would get me into nursing school. So part of OBC Hospital was a 3-year RN program. They had an on-site dormitory that some people went and stayed at, especially if they were from out of the area and came in to go to school there. So sitting there, class of 89, go JFK Wolverines. I am graduating fourth in my class. I am super excited to have been accepted into the Louise OBC School of Nursing. And I am just waiting and counting the days until I can get in and start digging in to those books.
Okay, so you're like all systems go. Can't wait another day.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I really enjoyed people to begin with. I've always been a nurturer by nature, and so yeah, I was just very felt led that this is where I was going, and I accepted that, and I never looked back, and I just put my energy into that. Didn't keep me out of every bit of trouble I could have gotten into, but it kept me out of most trouble.
I got you. I got you. So it's not uncommon when I interview someone that someone will say something similar to what you said in terms of they knew what they wanted to do. There was a focus on it, et cetera, et cetera. It's I don't know what percentage it is, but it's not uncommon to say but life or but God threw a curveball. So did you see that all the way through, or was there something else that happened?
No, no, everything was very smooth as far as transitioning into nursing school and enjoyed my 3 years. And by the time I was out, what you could do is because the hospital was right there, literally in walking distance, because I lived on campus for a little bit, and I would go over and work as a nursing assistant during my last 2 years to just gain experience and be around the other nursing staff. I easily blended with the oncology cancer ward staff, and I knew before my last year of school that that's where I was headed. That's what I wanted to do. And so, because I took that opportunity to do 2 years of nursing assistant work with that floor specifically, it was a good transition once I graduated, went through the process of getting my license. And then I started out in oncology nursing, and I did that for 7.5 to almost 8 years. And then toward the end of that, I had an opportunity to transition into full-time pain management for the hospital. I was very blessed to be able to have someone who'd come from the hospices in England, who was now living in our country, train me on her method of assessment and matching of medications, and afforded an opportunity to lead a hospital-wide team to implement pain management standards that were coming out. And before I knew it, I was the pain management coordinator of the hospital the last 5 years I was there, and just implementing the standards and going between physicians and patients, helping treat pain. And so that was kind of probably one of the highest points in my clinical nursing career inside of the hospital. And then as I'm finishing out those 5 years, not knowing that I would not be in the hospital after that, I decided that what I wanted to do was become a nurse practitioner. And part of that was because I saw some of my patients leaving the hospital, because at that point I was treating chronic cancer, post-op pain. I saw them leaving the hospital, and their pain was not managed as well, and I thought I would become part of the solution. And so I went on this trek to go back to school again, yet again. And before it was all said and done, I was a full-fledged nurse practitioner practicing pain management. I did that for about 3.5 years in private practice under the physician that I worked for.
So how many years in totality were you in healthcare?
Oh, I had a long-standing 16-year plus nursing career. To get to the level of nurse practitioner is about 11 years worth of education. Just under probably what a physician gets. And so that's why when nurse practitioners come out, they are so well trained. They have had many, many years of education and clinical experience. And so, yeah, that's where I was kind of sitting until 2008. And that's when my whole world shifted and the second part of my story starts.
So, well, first of all, it's admirable to say the least that you were in healthcare that long and that many different positions. And, um, the fact that you went straight to oncology. Um, I don't, maybe that's more common than I think, but I don't hear about that a lot. So it's reflective, I believe, in your heart for people. And then just the continuing education, like you said, to be a nurse practitioner, and it's that portion of your career is pretty astonishing, if you ask me. So 2008, like you said, we all reference 2008 with a certain real estate market that tanked here in the United States. Is there any correlation, or are we talking about something totally different?
Oh my gosh. Trust me, the real estate industry was the furthest thing from my mind in
Mm,
2008. 2008 was a crossroads moment for me, is what I explained to people. It was a crossroads for my faith and for my sanity. And because as I was continuing to do nurse practitioner and just enjoying what I'm doing, really loving the field that I'm in, right around that time, pain management became very controversial. We had gone through a period where it's seen its heyday, it was accepted, all these standards needed to be put in place, make sure we're treating these population of patients correctly. And then all of a sudden, the pendulum swung, not only in Virginia, but across the country. And it became scrutinized and it became overregulated. And there were some bad actors that were out there in it. But in 2008, what basically happened is that the practice I was in was formally shut down. We had someone come down from the medical board on an afternoon at 2 o'clock and told us to see our last patient and close the doors. And we were stunned. We didn't see it coming. And the long story short of it that I can share is that it initially was an investigation into the physician that I was working with. And I love that guy. I stand behind that guy to this day. I knew what kind of practice we run. I knew what we had done to educate ourselves in the field and have no regrets. But as it proceeded, with the practice doors shut, we were basically in those few weeks afterwards scrambling to help patients find other providers because our hands were tied and we could no longer treat them. We could no longer prescribe. In the midst of that, there was an interview with me that's pretty typical standard by the nursing board, and that's when I found out that they were going to investigate me. And part of that, I believe, was because I would not flip on my physician, and that was because there was nothing to flip about. And so, unfortunately, I had the experience of my entire reputation and integrity in the field being questioned. And 2008 in August started this year-long process where I was going thousands of dollars in debt, emotionally strung out, trying to defend myself, my 16-year track record, having people in the community plus eight well known physicians in the community write letters for me, stand behind me, and yet nothing. And then in the midst of all of this going on, in December of that year, my father passed away, and he was like the glue to my
mm,
little four-person nuclear family. So that was a shock, and it was a sudden death. It wasn't. There was this car accident that happened that led to his death, and that was just sudden and traumatic. And then toward the end of this year that I'm battling for my career, like in the spring of the next year, my husband at 47 is diagnosed with cancer. Here I am. I'm a cancer nurse
mm,
by trade. All the bells
goodness.
and whistles are going off. And it was just the most tumultuous year of my life. And I could not understand what was happening. It was what I tell people was a true Job, like Job in the Bible moment for me. And it really tested my faith. And the crossroads I was at was basically, was I going to lean into my faith or whether I was going to run away from it? Because when people go
Mhm.
through these kind of things, and the pain and the trauma I felt is felt by many people for many different reasons in many different scenarios, it will test your faith. So that's where I was sitting in 2008 when the whole real estate thing was going on.
Yeah, real estate. Yeah, you guys do your thing. I got bigger things going on. Wow, that is a lot. And well, let's take a second to praise God. First of all, obviously your husband's still with you.
He is. We were very lucky. It was a very early stage. It turned out he had surgery and he's a 10, probably almost 15-year survivor at this point.
Wow, incredible. And obviously so sorry about your father, especially when it's sudden. That makes it so hard. So, you know, back to this investigation for just a second. So, like, are you having to have attorneys and everything?
Oh yes.
Mm,
Yeah. I I went tens of thousands of dollars into debt. And toward the end of the year, just to come to find out, it was really, I tell people along this line, it was really a political assassination. There were people there trying to prove a point, and we were the point they were going to try to prove. And it didn't matter which way I go. It didn't matter what I presented. It didn't matter what I proved was untrue. It just was going to continue. So, what happens in that is that toward the end of that year, I decided with my attorney's advice to enter what's called a consent order. It's just an agreement that says you don't agree with me, and I don't agree with you, but we're going to end on these terms. The problem was in the consent order, which was so vague in its accusations at that point because nothing they had said in the beginning was proven true, that it really made me financially insolvable to be hired by a physician because at that point in stage, you could hire a nurse practitioner. She could run a second office. She could do many things. We were coming into a state of autonomy that we hadn't had before. And my consent order pretty much locked me in for a year, kind of hip to hip with a physician, which made no sense, but that's just the terms that we agreed to end the process because I had my husband to take care of and many more things to worry about. And I just had to make a decision to walk away from my career and and choose my family.
well, yeah, and yeah, you're taking care of your husband and grieving at the same time.
Absolutely. It was unfathomable that period of time. I never felt that kind of pain in my life. I tell people all the time, like I grew up in church, so I was one of those bubble wrap Christians. Like I didn't know anything but Jesus. Everything had been good up until that point. But this was my test, and you can't have a testimony without a test. I didn't see it that way at the time, obviously. When you're in it, it's really hard to see that. But afterwards, it was pretty clear God was taking me through for a reason, and He was refining me and the things within me. And so He was ready for me to lay my career aside and let that not be my identity and to swing my identity back into Him. And once that clicked and once that switched, I was able to start healing. But it was traumatic, and it was probably about a 5 year climb out of a hole once all of that went down.
So I definitely want to move eventually to what you're doing now. But I'd be remiss to go there too quickly because I would imagine dealing with that kind of, well, you just gave the time frame, really a 5 year piece of your life. How would you describe your self-worth during that time?
Oh my gosh, this is why I love what you're doing because that is the story that I tell people. Like to have your whole identity kind of ripped out from underneath you is just unsettling.
Mhm.
However, as a Christian, I realized that God was really saving me from something because you do get a little bit high on the notoriety. You get um high on having all those initials behind your name. You get high on what's the next accomplishment that I can achieve. And that's not what he put me in nursing for, right? He put me in nursing to care for people. And so I do believe at the end of the day, he was saving me from myself going down a road that was not glorifying him. And that's okay. But in the devastation of it all, I really had to dig deep. Like, God, why did you do this when you told me to be a nurse? Why did you allow this when you told me to be a nurse? God, are you really the God that I've heard about all these years growing up? And so I sat for days in disbelief. Couldn't go anywhere. Didn't have anything to do. Was putting resumes and job applications in. Nothing popping. Really had to deal with myself and my feelings. And I started really reading the Bible. And for the first time in my life, I read it cover to cover, in depth, studying through every chapter, every book with intensity. And I realized a lot of things. I realized how that book speaks to us. I realized the ups and the downs of all the people in the book. And I realized that Jesus does know our sorrows. And so as I'm in this moment in time, about 2 years in, I said, I have to get up. I can't cry anymore. I can't dwell on it anymore. Like it's not swinging back around. I have to move on with my life. And my way was to go back into service. That's what I knew to do. And so I went to my church, something simple, and I said, hey, can I put like the worship folders together for the Sunday morning? And I went in week after week for many weeks and put together 300 to 400 worship folders before our Sunday service just to get out of the house, just to get out of my head, just to get into a different space. And that was my turning point because now I'm surrounded by people who care. Now I'm in a loving environment. Now I'm being held up. And I'm not focusing on myself. I'm focusing on how to serve others. And so I started taking on different roles of service, volunteerism in the church, doing different things. My husband and I were very involved in our church at that time. He played in the band. We started serving as small group leaders. And then in 2010, God brought the biggest opportunity, and that our church started going to Nicaragua on mission trips. And I would end up going down there 9 years in a row with them for those mission trips. But that first one was pretty special because as I landed in Nicaragua, the pastor's wife there had also been a nurse in their system and heard that I was coming. And she had arranged for me to do female hygiene classes when I arrived. And I thought I was going to talk to like 20 or 30 orphans in the orphanage that their church ran. And me and a biology teacher that was on the trip, which was perfect, we ended up talking to over 200 girls in the school systems there that week. And it was just God's way of letting me know if I need you in that career again, I'll use it. But you are not outside of my will, and you're not outside of my ability to use you in the ways that I need to use you. And that was a true moment of healing. And then as we continue to go on those trips, that's when I got the call. So I'm sitting there one morning on a porch drinking coffee with this obnoxious rooster going off in the background in Puerto Cabezas, Nicaragua. And I heard God for the second time in my life, that still small voice. And he said, I need you to go home and raise up my daughters. Just like I heard him in sixth grade when he said, I need you to be a nurse. And
Hmm.
I thought, I'm not sure what this means. And I thought girls were mean at that point. Like my high school was like full of the mean girls, like I didn't like hang out with a lot. I wasn't in a sorority, that kind of thing. So not knowing really what he was talking about, I just went home. It was like something hidden in my heart, and I just went home with it. And then we were sitting one Sunday morning, and the church that we were in had grown from 400 to 1,000, and we'd built a new building. And I was able to see everybody on a Sunday morning together. And I thought, wow, there's all these women in the congregation, and I know her. And I know her story, and I don't know why she comes in every Sunday, checks the box, and goes home. Why
Hmm.
doesn't she take that and use it? Why doesn't she help the next woman who's experiencing that same scenario? And that's when it clicked. Like, when you think about like feeling that lightning coming down from the sky, like that's when it clicked. And I just knew I was supposed to become this catalyst for these women who didn't realize what they were supposed to be doing or how to get there. And that's when She Steps Forward was born.
Oh, what a journey. Um, that's in 2010, right?
Around 2010-ish
And
and
so,
proceeding.
yeah, well, of course, he was working on it all along. He's just revealing it to you at that time. So tell us more about the vision and then how that manifested itself into how you're, I don't use that word often, but how it ended up helping women today.
Absolutely. So part of that story I should just back up and say is that as I'm sitting here at the house and drowning and crying and writing and studying, I'm getting all these notes and things that I'm putting down, all these downloads that God's given me, scriptures, things, sayings, just information, lessons. I'm documenting the whole time, not knowing what I'm doing. Like I think I'm journaling, but I'm documenting. And as all of this is kind of occurring, all these things are kind of occurring. I heard God say, I need you to pick all that up and I need you to put it in a book. And I went, excuse me? I said, oh no, Jesus, people don't understand. Like they would not understand that this happened to me and that I was innocent. People just wouldn't get it, Lord. And he's like, no, no, I need you to put that in a book. And so what I ended up doing is compiling all of that in about 6 months. And it turned into my first book, which I self published. I call it Love Echoed Back. I cried out, he answered. And that's exactly what the book is about, is that whole tragic period and how I reached out to God. I called out to God. I got moving toward God and how his love just started resounding back to me in so many different ways. And so because I had the book, now I have to learn how to market this book and talk about this book and go do things for the book. And that was my way that I stumbled into entrepreneurship. And I figured out coaching. And so this thing called coaching came up, and I was like, wow, I think I've been doing this for a long time for women, but I called it mentoring or something different. And so 2017, I've got the book. It's already published. I'm out trying to speak and sell it. I'm getting in with these women. I'm trying to formalize how am I going to do this coaching thing. I go down and get my John Maxwell certification in 2017 because who doesn't love John? And I get my own coach. And I had this really great Christian gentleman who was in the area who took me under his wing and coached me a little bit, trying to figure out what is this thing that God has given me now that I'm calling She Subs Forward. And at first, I really thought it was about helping women inside the four walls of the church. That was all I'd ever known. I'd never really done anything but worked for somebody before. But now I'm learning entrepreneurship. I'm learning coaching. I'm going out to Nicaragua. Things are starting to change in my world. And so he quickly moved me into looking at the marketplace, looking at what is happening in the global world, what is happening outside of these four walls, Elaine. This is what I'm maturing you for, not just to keep coming here and absorbing and drinking the milk, but as Paul says, eat some meat and go do something. And so as I created She Steps Forward, around 2019, he gave me a concept for the She Steps Forward conference. And it was truly him. Everything I patterned in that conference came from him. It was a download, it was a blueprint. And I had networked for 2 years in the community. And so by the time we held the conference, I'd had a team of about 11 women volunteered to help me put it together. We had about 4 other women in the area that volunteered to speak. We had 15 women vendors that we supported, 3 women-led nonprofits that we did something tangible for through the proceeds. And we had about 60 women come out. And then God does this crazy thing in this conference in that he brings to me a Nigerian born but Kenya based woman from Africa to that conference, to my very first conference, which I
Mm.
had no marketing for. I think it was on Eventbrite at the time. I don't even know
This
how she found it.
Wow. So this is in Virginia, right? The first
This is
one?
in Virginia. This is in Virginia. So she found it. She contacted me. Sent me an email, and I was like, oh my God, I've won the Kenyan lottery. You know how you get those emails?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
But then I kind of responded to her because it was something sincere. And then lo and behold, she bought a ticket. She flew over. I found out later that she had family here on the East Coast, so it wasn't unusual for her to come to the States. But Teresa came to conference, hung out with us, and then she stayed a few extra days in my area because she wanted to get to know me. And we had these discussions. And before she left me to go to Delaware, she said, "Will you come to Nairobi? Our women need this." And I was like, "Wow, I'm not sure how we went here, but okay."
That happened quick.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I have to go home and explain to Mr. Lankford that somehow I need to go to Nairobi, Kenya. But my husband is such a great support. He's such a great guy. So Teresa and I got online. Technology is wonderful. We were on WhatsApp and Zoom and we planned it out for a whole year. And this is pre-COVID. And she and her husband turned out were co-pastors of a little church, about 300 members there. And she got a team of women around her and she pretty much absorbed everything that she saw. And I landed with three other people who were super curious how I was getting there. Three people, other people. We landed in Nairobi, Kenya in February of 2020 before the whole world shut down. And we had our
Mm.
very first She Steps Forward conference there. And we had 60 ladies from 5 different African countries show up. Yeah, that's what I said.
Wow.
Wow.
Holy cow.
And I just knew
And
he was onto something. I just knew he was up to something.
now wait a minute. I got a question. So that was in February of 2020, right before the
Yep.
world shut down.
Hmm.
You've done it every year since?
I've been going to Kenya every year since.
Even when most of the world was still shut down in like
I got,
21?
yeah, well, I got back into, it's funny, Kenya opened up around September of 2021. So I did go as a kind of just reconnaissance mission to see what was going on and what was happening. And then we relaunched the She Steps Forward conference over there in 2022.
Okay. Okay. Gosh, that's amazing. So give us a little peek because there's probably going to be quite a few women listen to this the next 30 days. Give us, without giving us the whole enchilada, give us a sneak peek into what they might experience at one of your events.
So our She Steps Forward conference is really turning into an intensive ground. So if you think about it, it is not the woo woo, come get your high, go home and do nothing with it type of environment. We are intentionally building for the conference out of the nonprofit piece for 0 to 3 year Christian females who want to step into business, parachurch ministry, or nonprofit work and do not know where to start or have pieces sitting in front of them that they don't know how to line up and make profitable. And so when you come in, the point is for you to get, yes, some inspiration as we get the conference started, but then we go into workshop mode and you are there to learn from the experts in the room and to take home practical things in your hands that you can apply to what you're trying to do as soon as you get home. And that is what we're now calling the SSFI Entrepreneurial Intensive.
So good. Um, why don't you tell me this? If you were just estimate how many women have attended conferences here in the USA and in Kenya, how many women in totality have you helped?
Probably between 1,000 to 1,500 have crossed my path at this point.
All right. So I want you to take that almost 1,500 women and just take a sampling of them for a second. And they're walking into your conference for the first time using just this is hard, by the way, but you'll see where I'm going with it. Use just 3 words to describe how they're feeling walking into that conference for the first time. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. And we just did this in our American conference. In our testimonials, they said, uh, not confident, stuck, and overwhelmed.
Not confident. What's the one word for that? We got stuck already.
Mm-hmm.
Not confident. Why am I not thinking of a word for that? Help me out. It's,
um,
it's, it's supposed to be your word anyway.
I know. What do I want to say? I would say insecure. That would
Ah,
probably be
there it
a
is.
good word
There it
for it.
is. That's
Insecure, stuck, and overwhelmed.
okay. Same sampling of women. They've experienced your conference, which is how long in duration, by the way?
Right now we do a day and a half.
Day and a half. That's
We're going to be
perfect.
growing it out to a full-fledged 3 days as we move.
Woo. Okay. Okay. So they're leaving at the end of that day and a half. Now what three words describe what they're feeling?
Oh, confident, focused, and fulfilled.
Now, why did I do that? I did that for two reasons. I did that because I want those listening to hear the power of God. Because women move from insecure to confident. They move from stuck, and I can't read my own writing. That's terrible. What did
To
it?
strategic. Mm,
Nah, but that's not the
not what I
word you
said,
used.
but
It was another F word. I got fulfilled. You know
focused.
what?
Focused.
It is focused. It is focused.
He's testing
All
my
right.
memory today, y'all.
You work for a doctor. I write like a doctor, but never got paid one like one. So that's my joke.
There you go.
Okay.
There you
So
go.
from insecure to confident, from stuck to focused, and from overwhelmed to fulfilled. See, that's heavy lifting that God has done. He's used you as a vessel, and he's gifted you with some specific skills, and those that are helping you with specific skills to help them. But it's always God that changes a heart and gives them hope. And I would imagine, this is my description, not yours per se, but I would imagine for you, it's like standing on holy ground,
It
watching them
is,
change.
and here's my favorite part about what God has given me in She Steps Forward from the beginning, and this is what we teach women. From the beginning, He has given me the story of Elizabeth and Mary, the mother of Jesus. She Steps Forward is based off of Luke 145, and blessed is she who would believe there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken to her by the Lord. First, we have to have the belief that what He's telling us, He will fulfill. And we pair that with Deuteronomy 8:18, which is that he's given us the power to create wealth. But the story of Elizabeth and Mary is pretty special. And I have taught women that story in a way that we don't hear very often in the pulpits or that we dig into because we get so tied up with, and rightfully so, we get so tied up with the fact that Mary is the chosen one to birth the Messiah. And we get wrapped up in the Christmas story of it all, right? The angel coming down and visiting her and giving her this great message. But what we don't get into is what did Mary do next? Mary took that all in. She accepted it. She said, I'll be the servant of the Lord. And then in this conversation that they're having, sidebar, the angel tells her, your cousin Elizabeth is pregnant. Well, who was Elizabeth? Elizabeth was this now older woman who's been barren her whole life, who's now birthing a miracle herself. She's pregnant with John the forerunner. And Mary is aware of it, but we have to remember that these two women were in two different places. Mary is up in Galilee, Elizabeth is down in Judea. They're 70 miles apart by geography. Mary gets up the next day. She grabs a hold of what this angel has told her of mentioning Elizabeth, which we don't talk about a lot in the story. We just get excited and we don't go there too often. And she gets up and she goes to Elizabeth. Folks, this was a 70-mile walk that this young lady, probably now impregnated by the Spirit, goes on without the permission of her parents, certainly not checking in with Joseph. She just gets up and goes. The scriptures tell us. What kind of person was Mary that she just got up and went? That's a deeply rooted Jewish girl who knows her God, who believes in what he's saying. And she gets down to Elizabeth and they don't have text messages. They don't have cell phones. Elizabeth doesn't know she's coming. She gets down to Elizabeth and she just from the doorway calls to Elizabeth. And the Bible teaches us that Elizabeth was filled with the Spirit and she goes into a prophetic mode and she talks to Mary in a way that could only be spirit led. And she said, who am I that the Lord's mother would come to me? She already knows what's going on. John leaps in her womb and we're we're not looking at the fact that the miracle maker has just come in and the miracle within Elizabeth is reacting to it. And as they're in this conversation, Elizabeth says to Mary, "And blessed is she who would believe there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken to her by the Lord." And then they say a few more things. Mary sings a song. And then the most important piece is there that women we overlook in the Bible. It says, Mary spent 3 months with Elizabeth. What were they doing in 3 months? What were their conversations? These two women who were doing the most miraculous thing that has ever been done, one birthing the forerunner, one birthing the Messiah. No one's ever repeated their process. Only they could have connected and known what the other one was going through, just like war veterans, right? And so Elizabeth is there to pour into Mary. Mary needed that shelter to get
Yeah.
herself prepared for what she was getting ready to go back and face, which could have been death if she was found out. And so I look at this relationship and I think that is what we're supposed to be doing as women for each other. One is the Elizabeth position to pour into Mary to help birth her destiny. Mary will eventually grow up and be the Elizabeth for another Mary. And that is what She Steps Forward is doing. We are the Elizabeths taking in the Marys to help them birth their destiny, knowing that we will train them up so that they become an Elizabeth eventually to help another Mary. And it's this beautiful thing that God has dropped into my lap that I would have never perceived out of all of the tragedy that I went through. But I am so grateful for it, and I would not trade anything for it. And I'm so excited to be able to do this work. And as you say, do it here in the States and in Africa.
There's so much gold in what you just said. I'm thinking like I appreciate you bringing it into the right perspective too. It's not like Mary got in her SUV and drove an hour, that's 70 miles, right? I mean, couldn't get an Uber. I mean, a 70-mile jaunt in those days was going to take days, several days, probably. Well, don't get me started on my math, but it may have taken a couple of weeks to have gotten there. And then the commitment by both of them, like you said, Elizabeth didn't even know she was coming. She could have responded in a plethora of ways, but they embraced each other and spent or 90 days together. And yeah, again, it wasn't like she went up there in her SUV and spent a couple hours and was back to Joseph by dinner. I mean, there's a lot of dynamics at play there. So you really explained that well. And I appreciate that. Really, really incredible ministry that you're doing. How would folks learn more about that particular conference and your book and just everything else about you? How would they learn more about you and the great work you're doing?
So they can go to either shestepsforwardcoaching.com, which is my one-on-one coaching practice website, or they can go to shestepsforwardinternational.org, which encompasses the nonprofit and it's the conference. We have not only the conference, wait, there's more, Steve. Not only the conference, but we do a 6 month group coaching cohort program. We're going to build out an American membership, online membership program. And we are a seed money grant program for women who come into our environment, our Marys. Once we have given them some coaching, once we have identified their gifting, once we've gotten them on their way, we want to be able to gift some of these Marys with a small micro grant of $500 to $1,000 to help them start that path. And we're doing that both here in the States and we're doing it in Africa.
Amazing, amazing. And we'll have all of Elaine's links, her social media links. We'll have them in the show notes when we're done with the show. You don't happen to have a copy of your book laying around right there, do you?
Oh goodness. Not in my reach. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's going
If
to
you
be
think
coming
about
back out online here shortly. It's you can get copies on Amazon still, but I'm actually going to be putting it back out myself here very shortly before the end of the summer.
well, feel free to when you do that to drop the link into the comment section of the interview. And even if you got if that's up to you whether you want to do the current one or the revised one. But I'd love folks to be able to check that out in the interview comments. What's next?
Well, that's funny you should say that. So we are getting ready to again we're getting ready to head back over to Nairobi this July. We just had a conference here in March. We're building for America, we are building an internal writer speaker team. So some of our ladies that are conference are now becoming a part of the team that will help develop social media content and all those kind of things. They understand the mission now. They're very excited. We're graduating 9 women in Kenya from our group coaching cohort program. We're so excited for their graduation. And I don't know. God has dropped of a little friend into my life recently, and she and I are talking through her nonprofit, which is doing great work in the sex trafficking arena. We might be taking She Steps Forward into Honduras by next year. We're going to see.
Ooh. Ooh, we might have got something hot off the press right there. We'll see what God does with that.
Hmm.
Such amazing work. Any last words of encouragement you want to leave the viewers with today?
I do. I just want to tell people, listen, we have all been put here for a purpose. There is a dream that God has probably put in your heart. Some of you have pushed it away. Some of you are struggling to see how it's going to happen. But God is a God of big dreams. The Bible tells us of the many, many dreams that He's given people. And when God gives you a dream, you just need to believe that He'll fulfill it. He's waiting for you to take that first step forward. And like the great Martin Luther King Jr. said, you don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the first step. And so I encourage you, if you know that you have a God sized dream, if it shows up in the marketplace or if it shows up in the local church, please lean into that dream and let God fulfill it. Just be prepared for Him to do it His way and in His time. But He is waiting. You have something that the world is waiting on.
Wise and powerful words, Elaine. And I figured I was kind of listening. I was like, oh, she might go to the Martin Luther King quote right there. And here's my encouragement to you guys: do take a step today. And even if it's just a baby step, take that, but take some steps forward now. Elaine, words of wisdom. I want to thank you for being vulnerable with us today, for sharing your life experiences with us today, for sharing such gold, um, just experiences that God has given you with the women that you're coming into contact with and how He ordained all of that. I just love your heart and how you're helping people. And I just want to thank you for being my new friend and our special guest today.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's so good to be here with you. I appreciate you allowing me to tell my story.
Absolutely. And guys, your story is not over yet. I'm sure Elaine, more than once in 2008 and for the next 5 years, wondered what's next. Is this all? Why me? All those questions, right? But her story wasn't over yet. See, it was a chapter, and it was a heavy chapter. And it was a chapter where she had to dig deep and rediscover how deep those roots were in her faith. But you see, now we hear the rest of her story and we see it was a hard chapter, but it was a chapter that propelled her to what's next. So if you're going through a tough season or a tough chapter right now, keep going, keep taking steps. There's better chapters ahead, but you have to keep moving forward to see them. And I know you will, and I can't wait to hear your story too. Till next time, God bless.